Hey guys, hello. I'm Chetan. I'm founder of Heike Games, and I make games.
Yeah. And my name is Rahman. I'm the technical founder of Titan Mobile. That's another company. That's because I work two jobs. And I'm an advisor of sort at Heike Games, so I really don't know why you brought me along here today.
Probably because we go way back. Back to high school, actually. Back when waveboards were a thing. Do you remember waveboards?
Oh yeah, I think both of us definitely we both definitely do. So
That's a
for those of you
waveboard
that
right
don't
there.
know, yeah, this thing is it's like a skateboard, except it has one pair of wheels, right? And that's as dangerous as that sounds like. Now, for those of you that have ever ridden on one, or owned one, or know what these are, this next story that we're about to share does not end very well.
So it's freshman year, and it's spring break. The two of us decided we wanted to see how fast one of these things could go.
You know, I mean, we're kids, right? So I took my hand, and I just grabbed Chetan's wrist, and I just began sprinting, like a steed of a mighty chariot. I had full consent, by the way. And then I just took him, and I threw him, just wild haymaker. And then I started sprinting after him, shouting in glee and exhilaration, and I couldn't keep up, because he was going faster, because he was accelerating downhill. And things were also going downhill pretty fast.
I was going down a hill on this waveboard. It's super exhilarating. Wind is rushing through my hair, and that's because I'm not wearing a helmet, of course. And I'm barreling down this hill, and halfway down the hill, I realize there's no way to stop. I mean, this thing doesn't have a brake. I see this kid coming out of his driveway of his house at the bottom of the hill, and he's just looking up at me like a deer in headlights. And I'm just going so fast, I don't know what to do. The only thing I can do is just step off the waveboard. And, I scrape the ground. I get these scars that I still have to this day.
Yeah, and this entire time we were stone cold sober, just for the record. And this was not freshman year of high school. This was freshman year of college. We were 19 years old at this time.
We were idiots.
Yeah,
and that's pretty much been our career as game devs so far. Eric just throwing me into the middle of shit. So, this is Orbit. I actually used to be an AI researcher before I was a game developer. And one of the side projects that I worked on used Unity, because I was using Unity for simulation for one of the experiments, and I realized it was really fun to work in. So I made this game as a side project.
Okay, and this is the game that we came to show today. And frankly, it was kind of a shock, and I think a surprise and an honor all at the same time when we were asked to come talk about that game. In fact, we really didn't know what to do, so we asked for them, what do you guys want to hear about? And they asked, really, we want the real deal. We want the real scoop. What was the journey like? What did you feel? And where did you end up? And I think that inside scoop is exactly what we'll give you.
Yeah, so let me tell you a bit about Orbit. This is, I made this n-body simulation, so a bunch of objects affected by gravity, they affect each other. And I thought, how do I turn this into a game? So you just take, it's very simple in one sentence. I could say it's, you touch the screen, it creates a planet, you drag and let go, it launches the planet, and you try to get those planets into orbit around black holes. This game was just a side project, like an art project. It wasn't intended to be released, so I just made it, and I didn't do anything with it. Started working on the next game immediately, actually. And Eric was like, this game is not going to, it's not done until it's out there, until it's released. You can't work on the next game until you've released this game. So, wise man, I released that game in September of that year, and then just did nothing with it at all. But around that time, I started considering quitting my job as an AI researcher to pursue game development full time. It's because it was so much fun. I just wanted to do it constantly. So I went to Eric and asked, should I quit my job? It was a difficult decision to make. And in response, he showed me this anime.
And this is an anime that I recommend everyone watch. It's quite heartwarming, and if you could direct your attention to the bottom of the screen, there's a bunch of GIFs we lined up. Just to quickly describe it, I see this dude, this little ding-dong punches this old guy in the face, and he gets sent to an island to think about what he's done, because that's pretty bad. He meets this kid, paints some calligraphy, and learns to live again. It's a heartwarming story, and I actually watched it when I was at my former job at Zynga Poker. It's a job that I really liked. It was nice and stable, and I had good advancement opportunities, and I liked the people that were there. And I was about to jump to a new studio to lead my first engineering team, and it was a little bit scary for me. And I made the jump after watching this and getting my feathers kind of deruffled, and I hope I did the same for you.
Definitely.
And in fact, I watched it again maybe about a year later at that other studio, and think, you know, it inspired a lot of wanderlust, and I thought, you know what, it would be great if I could just go to Japan one of these days, you know, maybe if I quit my job or get laid off or something like that.
So in January of that next year, I decided to quit my job. I took the leap, and all of a sudden, finances became a big deal. Something I hadn't really had to think too much about with the stable income. Now I don't have a W-2, and everything is adding up. I mean, I had bought this $4,000 bed when I was still full-time employed, with the justification that, you know, I spend a third of my life asleep. Should optimize that time. Should get good sleep. And now I'm thinking, what the hell? Why did I do this? This is ridiculous. I moved back home to my parents. They graciously took me in because rent in the Bay Area is crazy. Health insurance was not an easy process. I mean, that is expensive. And who knew food could be so expensive? Eating out every day is just not sustainable. Had to learn to cook.
I mean, it's we all knew that this was kind of like a ticking time bomb, moving toward the end. Like once your checking account and savings account both reach zero, you know, your career as a game developer is over. And I mean, I had this in mind, and I didn't really think too much of it, and that was my fault because I told him, my good friend here, that this game Orbit, when I first saw it, this was an inspired game. I liked it a lot. And I said, you know, it's not going to make too much money, so don't worry about that too much. Just kind of throw it out there, feel good about yourself. The problem is that Chetan took that a little bit too literally.
So I released Orbit with no monetization features initially. It was, you know, it was just an art project. Why should I release it with anything? It had no donation requests, no ads, nothing. And I went to Eric realized this and was like, "You idiot! You have to release it with. You can't just put it out there for nothing. You have to. It has to make some money somehow. You can't continue being a game developer." So with enough nagging, I updated it with a donation request, and I think maybe 2% of people threw me a bone. Donated anywhere between $1 to $10, and it was very gratifying to see people were actually willing to pay for give something for nothing because they like the game. At this time, I already was working on the next game, which is the music game. I already had a prototype of it. It looks something like this, and this was where it's a rhythm game where you're learning the drum. This was where most of our passion was, both Eric and I was going into, because we had just started playing music at that time. We just started learning together, and so that's why we were really interested in this game.
I remember we were practicing a lot, actually. I was drumming around the piano, and also a little bit of drums on your side too. And I remember, I was practicing a lot. I actually had quite a lot of time because that month my entire division got laid off. That was pretty great. It happened right after Valentine's Day. That's heartbreaking. Yeah, I know. But actually, not really, because you guys remember that? Yeah, we're going to Japan, baby.
So Eric comes to me one fine day after I quit my job, and he was like, "Yo, I just got laid off from my job, and we're going to Japan now." And I was like, "What? I can't go to Japan. I just quit my job. I'm running on savings now." So I thought about it. I had a choice, right? I could stay at home, I could save money, I could make games for longer, or I could maybe change my hair color and go to Japan. So guess what we did?
That was not a cheap haircut.
So we spent 3 months going around Japan, and man, Japan is a beautiful country. We actually spent most of our time there not touring, but making games. We spent a bunch of time in our hostel, and we just made games together. And did you remember Submarine?
I mean, that's something I don't think I can forget. So it was around this time that the second company that I'm part of started forming up, and we were in infantile stages. So I was working with people back home, Pacific Standard Time, some folks in India, and some folks in Europe, which means I was up at random hours of the day at all times. And of course, this percolated to my travel mates, and there was a time when all of us were sleeping at different times. So at any given time, there was always one person awake, and that person was making games. It's kind of like a submarine crew, which is how it got its name. It was a very busy 3 months, and it was actually really fun and rewarding.
Yeah, it really was. We went to Tokyo, and there we played a lot of rhythm games, scoping out the competition. There's floors and floors of rhythm games in Japan. It's amazing. It's crazy, and I learned a lot. Got a lot of inspiration from those games. Thinking back, it was a really great place to be when making a rhythm game. Japan in particular, and I even picked up 3D programming along the way in Unity, learned something new there, and made several prototypes of a rhythm game. And we ended up with a prototype that looks something like this at the end of our trip. We came back to the States, and we started taking Orbit to a bunch of shows and showing the game around to get the ball rolling again. And it got a lot of love from a lot of people. People really liked the game, and they were asking, what are you guys doing with it? And we had already been working on this new game, so I said nothing, not really. And one person in particular, one comment really stood out. He said, "Don't let your first baby die," because he didn't want me to just give up on it. So I took this to heart. I took it to Eric, and we decided to do Orbit justice, and we decided to rewrite the game from scratch in order to support a new feature called Sandbox, where users can make their own levels. And so while working on this, we submitted Orbit to the Google Play Indie Games Festival, which was a new thing that Google was running that year. And it got accepted to the festival, and something interesting happened. Orbit started to chart. And this moment changed the fate of our little indie studio forever, I think.
Because, for those of you that have seen a game chart, you kind of know what happens to new installs. It moves really fast. Users are just barreling in. And we always had a high App Store rating. And donations were coming in, but wasn't enough. We needed to do something fast or squander this opportunity forever.
Yeah, so what we decided, we got back to submarine mode. We worked day in and day out for 5 days, just working and eating and sleeping. In that time, we updated the game to include Sandbox with a backend that could support hundreds of thousands of people flowing in daily. That was coming from charting, which was a big engineering effort. We added ads into the game and squashed tons of bugs. And we replaced the donation feature with Sandbox, which was priced at $3. And this all paid off. We actually ended up winning the Indie Games Festival, which was a big moment for us. And one of the rewards, the most important one, was that Google was going to feature the game.
And at this time, we were not ready for that. Frankly, the game metrics at this time were terrible. They're absolutely bad. What percentage of people are paying for stuff in the game? It's only 2%, as we said before. It hasn't changed. Our retention, D7, 0.7. That's not good. That's frankly terrible. And we knew that if we did not fix this, this feature would go to waste. We'd squander it completely. And we didn't let that happen.
And yeah, we did not. We went back to submarine mode again. We redesigned all the levels from scratch for a better level progression, increase retention. We added Haze app for ad mediation to increase our eCPMs.
And we finished all this in the nick of time. Our work tripled retention, which was good. Mediation was solid. We doubled our eCPM, and we cut a deal with our top network to drive revenue even further. And we didn't talk about the pricing change for Sandbox. Conversion rate didn't change, so we basically tripled our revenue. Featuring was bringing in 300K users a day, and we broke 1K a day for a couple consecutive days. That was a big moment for us.
Yeah, it really was.
But here's why you guys are here right now. None of that was enough. Sure, we tripled retention, abysmal D 0.7 to an abysmal 2%. That's not going to change much. Our ARPU conversion rate is still 2%, so even though it tripled everything, that 2% is still not a very appetizing number. That 1K wasn't going to last forever, and we always knew that. We never thought Orbit would change our lives and be like a lottery ticket. We just wanted enough cash to make our next game that we're passionate about. And in that sense, Orbit did its job. But now we need to work a lot harder or squander the opportunity again. This is becoming an abusive pattern.
We've made $80,000 on Orbit so far. We just broke 6 million users. And this is great. For us, like just the two of us, for a side project, we were so happy about it. But is this a success? People ask us if we're going to be spending all our time working on this game, because, why wouldn't you if you have so many users? But we really have to ask ourselves, is that the best use of our time?
Yeah.
I don't know about
we're not stubborn. There is a reason why we couldn't respond to those requests and work on this game. And it all happened right here. So we did a marketing test on iOS. I don't know, 13 cents per install. That's pretty great. In fact, it's cool, cheap. But here's the thing: of those users, how much that should bring to us over the lifetime value that they bring? It's 2 cents, and this is because their retention is so bad. It basically reduces LTV directly to your average return per user, and this is going to be putting us dead in the water if we try to grow the game. And we knew we wouldn't stay in charts forever. You need UA to float the game in order to sustain the business. And we knew now with the math that we just couldn't do that.
Yeah, we never thought Orbit was going to, there was not a moment where we thought it was going to change our lives, going to be a sustainable business. And we were honest about that to ourselves too. So we've been working on this new game, Audio Sky, for over a year and a half now. And we've been doing this even though it's made $0 to date, and that's because it's not released yet. But, you know, what if we had worked on Orbit instead that whole time? You know, the game that's actually making money?
Yeah. I mean, sure, I think there's a lot of things that we could have done differently. I think everyone in the audience can know that, and I think we admit that. But all that work to triple our metrics, that was a lot of effort. And if we wanted to actually be able to market this game, we need to triple performance twice. And I don't think that was going to work. I mean, frankly, it was making money, but the prognosis doesn't look good.
Yeah.
Right? And, I mean, what's stupider? You want to chase 2 miracles on a dying game or 1 miracle on a new game? I mean, just by the new numbers, I don't think that we'd be able to make any games next year if we didn't just go for it right now.
Yeah.
And right now, I'm working 2 jobs just to be able to help my good friend here chase his passions.
I'm getting married next year, you know? $80,000 is not enough for 2 people.
Yeah. And I think that's where it ends up with passion, right? He's taking a huge pay cut. I'm working 2 jobs in order to make this done. And time again, when we go talk to independent developers, and this is where the conversation really gets real, is that they always say that, yeah, this is not about the money, this is about the art. And I think to a big extent, it is. I mean, no matter what you do in this industry, your job is inherently creative. But to be a starving artist, like we were for a little bit, to be taking that huge pay cut, there's no real honor in that. And I think that there is a place for passion in games. I mean, that's why you're not going to be a doctor in med school.
That's why I quit my job.
If this is not just a hobby to you and it's a career, then yeah, money's very important and 100% is about the cash. But they can coexist.
Yeah, they can coexist. We'd love to share more, but you know, we're out of time. We'd love to share more in the future about how we're working on Audio Sky to make sure we don't have to rely on a miracle like we did with Orbit. But yeah, maybe next year. You guys have been wonderful. Thank you so much for coming out and listening to us.
Okay. Okay. Any questions?
No real ambitions for the game.
Yes.
And I'm curious, had you built in hooks to see where your retention was dropping and were able to look at that, or were you kind of doing this blind and trying to figure out when you went back to go fix those points where people were dropping out of the game?
We did have analytics.
Yeah,
in
and
the beginning.
that's actually, we redesigned every single level in the game, knowing exactly where people were dropping off to try to smooth out the curve as much as possible. And that was pretty much the reason why we were able to kind of triple the amount of time people actually spend having our game installed on their phone.
Yeah, we could see where people were dropping off. And we had analytics from the beginning just because I remember I was just like, why not? We should just have it in there from the very first launch. But it was, you know, it was kind of just out of habit. You know, I've made things before, but it was definitely not intended to be used. And I learned that lesson. Always be measuring things as early on as possible.
So you were saying how when you started off and launched the game, it was purely for a passion project, and you were expecting it to go as far as it did. But then you had to go back and revise everything to actually make it worth working on as a full-time job. Would the lesson from this be that you should always have some idea of how you're going to monetize something if you have the chance to?
I think definitely that's the case. And in fact, I would go as far to say is that if you go out with an app and you're not thinking about business, you've already lost the battle. And it doesn't matter whether you're at 600 installs, 6,000, 6 million. If you're not thinking about business, how you're going to monetize your app from day one, you're going to be the only one paying that metaphorical price. So all those emails you're getting from ad networks, you should probably respond to them.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.